Yo, this is Matthew Aaron, former host of Crypto 101 podcast and producer of What is Crypto. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I want to say please go to freerodneyreed.com to look at a case challenging the idea of justice in our legal system. DNA evidence, witnesses, and testimonies have not been presented to jurors in a case that might cost a man his life. So if you care about the American legal system, the idea of innocent until proven guilty, and justice, and if you believe in the statement beyond a reasonable doubt, please go to freerodneyreed.com, sign the petition, learn about the facts of the case, and let's help stay the execution of a man until he gets a fair trial.
What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Nye, and today I've got a very special guest for the What is Crypto podcast. Today I'm sitting down with
Roger Keith Beer.
Now, this guy is a very controversial figure in the blockchain cryptocurrency world. He was
First person in the world to start investing in the cryptocurrency ecosystem, and today I'm the founder and executive chairman of Bitcoin.com.
He was a huge advocate of Bitcoin very early on and a very large proponent of bringing adoption and awareness of this technology to a lot of people. Then he went out and he decided to fork Bitcoin into Bitcoin Cash because of his belief system that the current BTC was not and is not meeting the standards of the P2P cash system that Bitcoin is meant to be. Now, whether you like this guy or whether you hate this guy, this is an interesting episode and he is a passionate individual. In this episode, we talk a little bit about BTC versus BCH versus BSV, and we discuss which one is the true Bitcoin and a little bit more deeper into the topic of what are the goals Bitcoin Cash is really wanting to accomplish. First off, guys, this is not financial advice. We are not financial advisors. I'm just here to create content that is entertaining and educational. And if you want to dive in and make a comment about the Roger Ver interview or any of our other interviews, you can hop over to our Facebook group and learn about that at whatiscrypto.com, or you can head over to Twitter and tag us at whatiscrypto, and we will be sure to get to your question or request. All right, guys, let's listen to what Roger has to say. Can you give us an outline or a definition? What is Bitcoin?
For me, Bitcoin is very clearly what's defined right there in the very title of the white paper. It's a peer-to-peer electronic cash system meant to be used for people to buy and sell and pay for things all over the world.
And is this definition of Bitcoin, which is specific to the white paper, is this best representative of BTC, BCH, or BSV at this current moment in time?
That's obviously a point of really contentious debate. I think if you look at it objectively, even though the coin called BTC that everybody's calling Bitcoin today, well, it has more hash rate and it has a higher price, but the people behind it aren't advocating that it be used as a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. So if it's not trying to be the very title of the white paper, I don't think it's fair to or accurate to call that Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin Cash most closely resembles the original Bitcoin that was described in the white paper and the original Bitcoin that I got excited about back in 2011 and helped seed the ecosystem for.
We're going into this for beginners, right? And if someone comes in and they see BTC, they see Bitcoin, they see Bitcoin Cash, they see Bitcoin Satoshi's vision, they see Bitcoin Gold, all of these different quote unquote versions of Bitcoin, whether they are versions or not is debatable. What's something that you would like people to know about the differences between specifically BTC, BCH, and BSV that's specifically worthy for a beginner to be aware of?
I think the thing that most people don't realize, and I want them to know about the coin that everyone's calling Bitcoin or BTC, is that the software developers behind it openly say that they want the on-chain transactions to be slow, expensive, and unreliable because they intentionally want the blocks to be full. And that's not how Bitcoin became popular in the first place. That's not what led Bitcoin to become this worldwide phenomenon that it is today. So they incredibly drastically changed the underlying economic code that made Bitcoin successful to begin with into something that doesn't even resemble that original Bitcoin. Yet they still insist on keeping the Bitcoin name and have succeeded in keeping the Bitcoin name, but it's not the original version of Bitcoin that made it Bitcoin popular to begin with. It's Bitcoin in name only, not in its usefulness to people around the world.
And what's the purpose of them doing that to slow down the blocks? Is this like, you say it's intentional, is there a beneficial intentionality to it, or is this like a behind the scenes malicious attack of Bitcoin?
I don't think it's a behind the scenes malicious attack on Bitcoin, although some of that may have played a role. I think mainly it's just people that are ignorant of the economic reasons that Bitcoin became popular to begin with. And they view, rather than the goal of Bitcoin being peer-to-peer electronic cash for the world, they view it as this science project in decentralized, computer systems and censorship resistance. But they don't seem to care about the fact that who cares if it's censorship resistant if nobody can afford to use it. I think that there needs to be a more nuanced balancing of those things. Yeah, of course, we want it to be censorship resistant peer-to-peer cash for the world. But if it costs $50 or it's too complicated for anybody to be able to use it, then what was the point? Whereas Bitcoin Cash transactions cost about a tenth of a penny, and you can, set up a new Bitcoin Cash wallet and send them $1 worth of it, or even a penny's worth of it, in less than 30 seconds. And that's what made Bitcoin popular from 2009 until around 2015. That's no longer possible on what everybody's calling Bitcoin today. It's still completely possible on Bitcoin Cash today.
This is going to be maybe a different discussion. There's so many different forks that happen, right? And not only is it a fork of the code and changing the code up a little bit, but it actually creates a fork of the community. It creates more division and maybe potentially even more competition, one could argue. Taking your perspective of Bitcoin Cash out of this, do you think that forking the community in such a way is a positive thing in the long run because it benefits via competition, or do you think that we're just kind of shooting ourselves in the foot?
Yeah, I think it goes both ways there. Forking is good in the sense that every community gets the version of the coin that they want, and they get the coin with the characteristics that they think are most attractive. But forking is also damaging because it undermines the network effect of each of those coins when they fork. And the network effect is incredibly important when it comes to money. So suddenly the network effect is much smaller, even though there's two different versions of a coin that people within each camp like much more than the other version. That's damaging in that effect. And the thing that's been the most frustrating for me about the forking and the infighting and the division is that it's given the politicians time to catch up and time to start paying attention and time to start drafting laws and regulations to try and control what people do with their cryptocurrency. And for me, from day one when I got involved, my initial goal with pushing the adoption as hard and fast as I possibly could in actual commerce is because if you get everybody around the world using Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash or whatever cryptocurrency to buy and sell everything, their pet food and their baby formula and their mortgage and their rent and their food and absolutely everything, it's too late for politicians to ban it at that point. It's too late for them to demonize it and saying, oh, this is only for terrorists and drug dealers and things like that, because everybody would say, no, I'm using it for everything in my daily life. This isn't just for bad people. This is for everybody. And that's the part that's been so frustrating for me, that the civil war that went on within Bitcoin allowed the politicians time to catch up and start paying attention to what's going on.
I want to give a big shout out to our first sponsor, and our first sponsor is Celsius Network. They are doing some really, really cool stuff, trying to revolutionize the way we think about the financial world and financial services. Celsius offers 10% annual interest on all crypto deposits, and there's no secret to how they're doing it. That 10% comes from them sharing 80% of their profits rather than the 0.0000001% that banks choose to share. Celsius is giving each user $10 in Bitcoin when they make their first 200 deposits or more in crypto or stable coins when they use the promo code NYE. These guys are working hard to revolutionize the way we look at the financial world, and they're taking on the banks. I'm personally a huge fan of what Celsius is building, so dive over to celsius.network to learn more and to use your promo code NYE in order to get $10 in BTC when you make your first deposit of $200 or more.
Yeah, that's a big one, and I think the main conversation revolves around your belief in sticking to the white paper, sticking to Satoshi's true vision, no pun intended.
If I can clarify on that a little bit though too. So I'm not advocating sticking to the white paper for the white paper's sake. I'm advocating sticking to the economic formula that we know worked and worked incredibly well to make Bitcoin popular around the world. And that formula was fast, cheap, reliable on-chain transactions with blocks not being full, because the blocks were never, ever, ever full on Bitcoin until maybe 2016 or 17. They started to become full occasionally. And at the end of 2017, they were full all the time. And it was an absolute disaster. It was the first time in the entire history of Bitcoin in which we saw negative commercial adoption, whereas businesses like Microsoft and Expedia and Dell Computer that used to accept Bitcoin stopped accepting Bitcoin because the transactions on the network became too expensive and too unreliable for them to actually use in commerce. And that's why people like myself stopped using Bitcoin in commerce. I had been using it to pay people all around the world. And instead now I've had to switch all of my time and effort and resources and paying over 100 people at bitcoin.com every month. We pay them all in Bitcoin Cash now because Bitcoin Cash works just the same way that Bitcoin used to work when I fell in love with it the first time in 2011.
So does that completely validate BTC in terms of its entire use? Or do you think that this store of value conversation that economists have been bringing up and have brought into the ecosystem has some
No, all the economists, anybody that studied economics, laugh at the idea of something being only a store of value. Nothing is only a store of value. It has to have an additional use case in order for it to be usable as a store of value. So, for example, people love to use the dollar as a store of value, but the reason they use the dollar as a store of value is because they can spend it anywhere. If the dollar wasn't spendable everywhere, nobody would use it as a store of value. The reason people use gold as a store of value is because it has all sorts of other use cases in dentistry and electronics and jewelry and things like that. If it didn't have those secondary use cases, nobody would use it as a store of value. People use real estate as a store of value because you can live in the house. If you weren't able to live in the house, or if the real estate didn't have some additional use case other than being a store of value, it wouldn't be a store of value. So the whole idea that something can function as being only a store of value is absolute economic nonsense. And anybody who studied economics understands that. And that's why they find this narrative so frustrating.
Now, the conversation of more of these centralized coins based upon even like Ethereum may be decentralized, but it's also very centralized around Vitalik and him as a forefront figure. One could say something very similar with you in terms of you are a forefront figure of Bitcoin Cash and very much a leader in that limelight. Do you think this is a problem for the long-term sustainability of Bitcoin Cash or of any other project in the cryptocurrency ecosystem?
Well, that exact same argument could have been made about me and Bitcoin from 2011 until 2013 or 14-ish. I was basically the only face out there that was going out there and driving adoption and investing in businesses and making things happen. And today, Bitcoin, in that respect, has a lot more faces and a lot more involvement. So I think the same is happening with Ethereum right now, and I think the same thing is happening with Bitcoin Cash right now. So I don't see it as a long-term problem at all. I think we need more people that are willing to step up to the plate and spend their time and effort and money to drive adoption and build actual useful things for people to use around the world.
So you think eventually Bitcoin Cash or other solutions such as Ethereum will just pretty much outgrow their quote unquote founders and will become entities of their own?
Sure. And before that, in Bitcoin, you had Gavin Andreessen as well as the lead developer, and he's no longer the face of Bitcoin, but I hear he's a big fan of Bitcoin Cash. And for those that don't know that are listening to this, Gavin Andreessen was literally the person that Satoshi Nakamoto turned over the keys to the project to when Satoshi disappeared. And today, Gavin's a great big fan of Bitcoin Cash. I was the first person in the entire world to start investing in this ecosystem. I translated the entire Bitcoin white paper into Japanese and the entire Bitcoin website into Japanese and spread it into Japan. And of course, I'm a big fan of Bitcoin Cash. And then Jihan Wu, the founder of Bitmain, the number one producer of mining equipment in the entire world, was the person who translated the white paper and everything into Chinese and spread Bitcoin into China. And today, he's one of the biggest proponents of Bitcoin Cash. So the fact that all of the most vocal and prominent people in spreading Bitcoin adoption to begin with today are such big fans of Bitcoin Cash, I think lends a strong credence to the argument that Bitcoin Cash most closely resembles the economic formula that all of us fell in love with about Bitcoin to begin with. And the thing that everybody's calling Bitcoin today in the market no longer is that coin. It's Bitcoin in name only. It doesn't have a white paper. It doesn't have any sort of guiding principle other than a bunch of trolls on the internet that attack anybody that says that, well, maybe the thing that everybody's calling Bitcoin today isn't the end all be all of cryptocurrency. Maybe it can be improved upon. Maybe there's something out there that can be even better and more useful to people around the world.
Now, I've seen the videos on Twitter and other platforms of you actually going out and utilizing Bitcoin Cash to pay for lunch and other things like that in different countries. What are some of those efforts that you're currently making to push the adoption of Bitcoin Cash and other cryptocurrencies?
Yeah, some of these trolls on the internet love to mock the fact, oh, Roger's getting, one store at a time set up to accept Bitcoin Cash. And like, yeah, we've done some of that, and it makes for, a fun clip that can be put on YouTube or on Twitter where you can see me talking to one single store owner and setting up one at a time. But what we're actually working on is rolling out Bitcoin Cash to tens of thousands and then hundreds of thousands of merchants all at the same time overnight by integrating directly with the point of sale systems. In fact, before the end of the year, we should have a big announcement on that fact with an existing point of sale system. They'll be rolling out to tens of thousands of locations, that the only cryptocurrency they'll be accepting is Bitcoin Cash. They'll be accepting, credit cards and Apple Pay and Samsung Pay, or Android Pay rather, and Bitcoin Cash. And the reason they're using Bitcoin Cash is because the Bitcoin Cash transactions are fast, cheap, and reliable. The other cryptocurrencies that have a similar size network effect aren't anywhere near as fast, cheap, or reliable. And so that's going to be really, really fun to see that rolling out to tens of thousands of locations overnight. So another example of this is HTC. Bitcoin.com is partnered with HTC. They're pre-installing the Bitcoin.com Bitcoin Cash Wallet app directly in every new HTC phone that they sell. And in fact, if you want to try out their new HTC phone, you can buy it directly on Bitcoin.com as well. And it has this secure hardware element that allows you to sign and store your private keys for Bitcoin Cash right there built into the HTC phone. And we have additional partnerships with hardware manufacturers like that in the works as well. And so Bitcoin Cash clearly is the platform that people that actually want to use cryptocurrency as currency in commerce, people are building on top of Bitcoin Cash to do that.
Awesome. Well, I thank you so much for taking the time to come on and chat with us a little bit.
My pleasure. And if I can plug one thing for listeners to this, if you haven't tried cryptocurrencies at all, go and give them a try. You don't have to stick with just one. You can try as many different cryptocurrencies as you want. And if you don't have any Bitcoin Cash yet, we're giving away 3 cents of it for free, just so you can try it out. And that's enough to do a bunch of transactions. Anybody that heads to free.bitcoin.com can get that right now today. And that's the same sort of method that I used to receive my very first Bitcoin ever. And sadly, the coin that everybody's calling Bitcoin today, it's no longer possible to send people a couple of cents worth of it over the internet by the intentional design of the software developers that have hijacked the Bitcoin project. Whereas with Bitcoin Cash, it's still possible to receive a couple of cents of Bitcoin Cash just like that right now today. So go and head on over to free.bitcoin.com to give that a try. But give other cryptocurrencies a try as well. Try them all and figure out which ones are the most useful to you in your life. And thanks for getting involved.
Awesome, brother. Thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, that was a fun and interesting interview. Roger is a passionate individual. You can hear it in his voice. And again, he's controversial. Whether you like the guy, whether you don't like the guy, whether you agree with him, whether you disagree with him, that's beside the point. What is the point of what I'm trying to say here is he's a passionate guy. He really believes in what he's doing. And some people believe that he's doing good. Some people don't believe he's doing good. That's up for the personal individual. Now, what I like about this conversation is we really focused it on Bitcoin Cash. There wasn't a lot of Bitcoin bashing. We weren't really talking a lot about Bitcoin SV. If you're a beginner, I just want to be very clear about the differentiation between the BTC and the BCH. It's very, very important to understand if you decide to purchase an asset, which I'm not telling you to do, but if you decide on your own, you understand which asset you're purchasing and you don't get tricked or manipulated in any certain way. Anyways, guys, for the do your own research DYOR section today, I want you to go read an article about the differences between BCH and BTC and a little bit about why Roger has gone forward and pushed Bitcoin Cash so hard. You can leave your comments on that article on Twitter, tagging us, or you can leave them in our Facebook community. And guys, as always, please hit that subscribe button. Please leave us a 5-star. Please leave us a review. It would mean a lot to us. And we'll catch you in the next episode. Peace.